At 18, my family left me with a note saying, figure it out. 10 years later, I'm a successful musician, and they're back broke and asking for money. But a creepy music box and a strange warning tell me it's not just about cash, it's payback time. That FedEx package hit my porch like a bad omen. There was no return address, just my name, Liam Carter, and my LA address. My album, Echoes of Solitude, was screaming up the charts 10 years after they decided I wasn't worth the damn moving truck space. This package felt different, it felt like them. Inside, I found that tarnished silver music box, hers, my mother's. My stomach churned, and under it the paper, they know you've made it, be careful. My high-rise apartment, my supposed castle, suddenly felt like a damn prison cell. They, my parents, David and Susan, my sister Chloe, the holy trinity of abandonment. I was 18 years old when it happened. I came home from my own damn graduation, diploma in hand, to a house picked clean, like locusts had been through. All that was left was that note on the kitchen counter. You'll figure it out. Figure it out. Right. I figured out what concrete floors felt like. I figured out the taste of 3-day-old dumpster bagels. I figured out how to shower at the YMCA without getting caught, always looking over my shoulder, feeling like a damn fugitive. All of this while Princess Chloe was probably pirouetting on ice somewhere, their golden goddamn child, the one whose expensive skates and sequined costumes had probably been bought with money that should have fed me. The memories, they weren't just memories. They were scars, deep and jagged. When I was 13, I spent an entire Saturday, my meager allowance blown on ingredients, to bake her that lopsided birthday cake. Her review delivered with a dismissive little laugh. Clumpy, just clumpy. No thank you, no hug, just that one cutting word. At 15, I was practically living in the library with Chloe, trying to drag her through algebra finals while she complained I was a freaking know-it-all and that my explanations were boring. She'd slam her bedroom door in my face if I pushed too hard, the sound echoing the constant shutting out I felt from all of them. At 16, after getting my first real job bagging groceries at the local supermarket, the smell of floor cleaner and stale bread clinging to my clothes, I'd proudly handed over my entire first paycheck to Dad because he'd been moaning about the electricity bill being overdue. A month later, during one of his tirades about how useless I was, how I was a drain on their resources, I timidly mentioned that paycheck. His face had gone crimson. He'd screamed, accusing me of being disrespectful, of throwing money in his face, of trying to buy his approval. I was useful when they needed a punching bag, a built-in tutor, or an occasional, begrudgingly accepted cash infusion. Loved? That word wasn't in their vocabulary. Not for me anyway. The landlord, a week after they'd vanished, had found me huddled in a corner of the master bedroom, the only room that still faintly smelled like people had lived there. He'd looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. They broke the lease, son, called me from the road, said you were 18, your problem now. You got 7 days. 7 days to evaporate. Mark's couch had lasted 3 nights before his mom started giving me the stink eye at breakfast. Sarah's floor was even shorter. Her new boyfriend didn't like strays. Then came that 10 by 10 storage unit, my 5-star accommodation for the next 6 months. The air stank of mildew and despair. Peanut butter, eaten with a cheap plastic spoon I'd swiped from a fast food joint, became my staple. That was my life. That was what they'd left me to figure out. And now, this. The music box. The warning. Ava, my best friend, my manager, my one-woman cavalry, was at my place before the echo of my panicked call had even faded. Her purple-streaked hair seemed to bristle with protective fury as she examined the package, careful not to smudge any potential prints. This is a goddamn scouting mission, Liam, she declared, her voice low and dangerous. They're not just testing the waters, they're announcing their goddamn arrival. That be careful, that's them sharpening their knives, letting you know they're coming to carve you up. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a shrill, unwelcome sound. It was Instagram, Chloe. Her profile picture was a carefully constructed image of weary beauty, a single, artful tear, perhaps just out of shot. Liam? It's me, Chloe. Your music. I heard it on the radio. It's incredible. I've missed you so much. Can we please talk? My blood ran colder than the day I'd found that empty house. Missed me? They hadn't missed me when I was trying to figure out how to stretch a $5 bill for a week's worth of food. They hadn't missed me when I was shivering in that storage unit, using my guitar case as a pillow. The advance party has landed, Ava sneered, her eyes fixed on my phone screen. Operation Guilt Trip and Fleece is officially a go. Don't you dare reply to that. Not yet. Let me find out what particular sewer these rats have crawled out of this time, but they didn't need my permission to escalate. Chloe's DMs became a daily deluge of saccharine regret and carefully chosen childhood anecdotes, conveniently omitting any of her own bratty behavior or their parents' casual cruelty. Then came the emails, from a newly created, anonymous-looking Gmail account, undoubtedly my mother's handiwork. They were masterpieces of passive-aggressive martyrdom, dripping with fake tears, and "we always loved you, but circumstances were so cruel" bullshit. And always, there were the subtle, then not so subtle hints about how things have been so incredibly hard for us, Liam. Hard for them? They should try living on hope and stale crackers. Dr. Evans, my therapist, the man who'd patiently spent 3 years helping me sift through the wreckage of my upbringing and rebuild some semblance of self-worth, listened with his usual calm attentiveness during our next session. They perceive your success as an opportunity, Liam, he stated, his gaze direct but kind. A resource to be tapped. Their timing is not coincidental. The critical question now is not about their motives, which seem fairly transparent, but about your boundaries. What, if anything, are you willing to offer, and what are you determined to protect? What did I want? The 18-year-old ghost that still haunted the edges of my memory, the one who'd cried himself to sleep in that freezing storage unit, wanted to scream until his lungs burned, wanted to hurl their hypocrisy back in their faces. The 30-year-old Liam, the one who'd learned to channel that rage and pain into music that was now, ironically, drawing them back like moths to a flame, wanted them to disappear back into the void they crawled out of. But that warning, be careful, it suggested something more than just a desperate plea for a handout. It felt like a tripwire. Ava's initial digging confirmed my darkest suspicions. The Carters, she found out, had left a trail of financial wreckage across 3 states after they'd abandoned me. Chloe's much-vaunted Olympic skating dreams had imploded a few years back, a career-ending injury, the details of which were conveniently vague and varied depending on who was telling the story. And my father, David Carter, the man who'd lectured me about responsibility while simultaneously shirking his own, had apparently discovered a new all-consuming passion, gambling. He was, according to Ava's less than savory but surprisingly reliable sources, neck-deep in debt to people who didn't send polite reminder notices. They were currently holed up in some forgotten sun-baked town in Nevada, probably just one step ahead of the repo man or worse. So Daddy Dearest is a degenerate gambler, and they figure I'm his winning lottery ticket. I spat, the bitterness a familiar taste in my mouth. A real class act, the whole damn family. And that note, if he owes serious people, that be careful might not be from one of them at all. It could be from someone on the other side of his debts. A sick, twisted part of me. The part that still, stupidly, craved some kind of explanation, some acknowledgement of the devastation they'd wrought, made me agree to meet Chloe. She'd suggested a greasy spoon off a desolate stretch of highway in Nevada. Neutral ground, she'd called it. Neutral like a goddamn minefield. Ava, predictably, insisted on driving. Her expression was thunderous, and I knew she had her pepper spray within easy reach. I'm waiting in the car, Liam. She pulls anything at all. I'm through that door before she can blink. Chloe looked like hammered shit. The years and whatever life she'd been living hadn't been kind. The Ice Princess sparkle was long gone, replaced by a jittery, haunted look in her eyes. The apologies started before the waitress even brought over the lukewarm coffee, a torrent of well-rehearsed regret and carefully selected excuses. Oh, Liam, we were so wrong, so terribly wrong, she choked out, tears already brimming, a Kleenex appearing as if by magic. Mom and Dad, they live with the guilt every single day. They always said you were so strong, Liam. So independent. They truly believed you'd figure it out. They told me you wanted to stay behind, that you had friends you were going to live with, that you were excited to be on your own. Lies. Every single goddamn word. A carefully constructed narrative designed to absolve them and manipulate me. Independent in a storage unit, Chloe? Eating peanut butter for 6 months straight? Is that the exciting plan they told you about? My voice was dangerously quiet, a low rumble of the storm brewing inside me. Her face did a practiced little crumple, a flicker of what might have been genuine pain or just exceptionally good acting, before the mask of sorrowful regret slid smoothly back into place. Oh, Liam, no. We never knew it was like that. We would have done something. Right, just like they'd done something for the past 10 years. Then, right on schedule, came the pivot. Things have been just a nightmare, Liam. After my accident and Dad, his business ventures, they've all gone south. We're losing everything. Her eyes, those Carter family special manipulative eyes, the ones that could feign innocence while plotting your downfall, bored into me. Your success, your music, it feels like a sign from God, Liam, a lifeline, a chance for us to finally be a family again, for you to help us get back on our feet. Just a little to tide us over. Help them out. There it was, the hook carefully baited with tears and tragedy. Before I could tell her exactly where she and her little help could go, the greasy diner door creaked open with a groan that seemed to echo the despair in the air. 2 figures detached themselves from the blinding Nevada glare outside and strode in with an air of grim purpose. My parents, David and Susan Carter, looking like a pair of aging vultures who'd just spotted a fresh carcass on the highway. Chloe hadn't come alone. This wasn't a tentative step towards reconciliation. This was a goddamn ambush, meticulously planned. My mother, Susan, rushed towards me, bypassing Chloe as if she were a piece of furniture, her arms open wide, a theatrical sob already building in her throat, ready for its close-up. Liam! My darling boy, my precious son, we knew Chloe could convince you. Oh, how we've missed you every single day. My father, David, hung back a pace, his smile tight, predatory. His eyes, shifty and calculating, did a quick, dismissive sweep of my clothes, my watch, probably trying to estimate my bank balance from the scuff on my boots. Son, he said, his voice a gravelly attempt at paternal warmth, looking good. Real good. Success becomes you. The music box. The anonymous warning. Chloe's perfectly timed Instagram DM. My parents' surprise, dramatic entrance. It all slammed together in my head with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a desperate plea for forgiveness. This was a goddamn con, a well-rehearsed play, and I was the unwilling and apparently very valuable star. That creepy little melody from the tarnished silver music box, those strange, discordant, off-key notes, they were suddenly playing loud and clear in my mind. A frantic, urgent warning siren. This wasn't just about cashing in on my newfound success. This was something else, something far more dangerous, far more rotten to the core. And I had a sickening feeling just getting started. The reunion at the diner felt less like a heartwarming reconciliation and more like a hostage negotiation where I was the only one who didn't know the demands yet. My mother, Susan, clung to my arm, her sobs conveniently timed to punctuate my father's carefully crafted monologue about misunderstandings and the burdens of parenthood. David Carter was a performer, I'd give him that. He spun a tale of financial woes, bad investments, no mention of gambling, of course, and the crushing weight of Chloe's medical bills after her tragic, career-ending injury. It was all designed to paint them as victims of circumstance, a loving family that had merely stumbled. Chloe, meanwhile, played her part to perfection, dabbing at her eyes, occasionally interjecting with a tremulous, "It's true, Liam, we've all suffered so much." She seemed to have conveniently forgotten our private conversation, or perhaps that too had been part of the act, a way to soften me up for this main event. The thought sent a fresh wave of disgust through me. "We always knew you had a gift, Liam," my father continued, his eyes gleaming with an unnatural fervor as he gestured around the greasy spoon. This music of yours, it's a blessing. A way for us to finally have a fresh start. As a family." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There's this incredible opportunity, son, a real estate venture, practically foolproof. A good friend, an old business partner, he's let us in on the ground floor. All it needs is a little capital to get it off the ground. With your success, we could all be set for life. Imagine, Liam, all of us, together again, secure. The good friend, the foolproof venture." It reeked of desperation and deceit. Ava's intel about his gambling debts and shady associates flashed in my mind. This wasn't an investment. It was a bailout, with me as the unwilling bank. I managed a non-committal grunt. "I'll have to think about it." My mother's grip tightened. "Oh, Liam, don't think too long, darling. This opportunity, it won't last forever, and we really need this." Her eyes, so adept at feigning sorrow, held a flicker of something harder, something steelier. The drive back to L.A. with Ava was filled with her furious, articulate dissection of their performance. "They're not even good liars, Liam. Bad investments? Please. And Chloe? She deserves an Oscar for that teary-eyed routine. They're playing you like a goddamn fiddle." "I know, Ava," I said, weariness seeping into my bones. "But that music box, the warning, there's something else going on here. It's not just about the money they think I have." Ava had already started digging deeper into the old business partner my father had mentioned. "His name is Marcus Thorne, apparently," she reported a few days later, her voice grim over the phone. "And he's not just an old business partner. He's a known loan shark, with a reputation for aggressive collection tactics. The address on that slip of paper from the music box, it's a P.O. box registered to one of Thorne's shell corporations." A cold fist clenched in my stomach. So, the warning was real, and my family was either a willing part of Thorne's scheme, or they were so deep in his debt that they were being used as bait. Either way, I was the target. The pressure from my family intensified. Daily calls from my mother, each one more desperate, more cloying, text messages from Chloe, filled with childhood photos and appeals to my good heart. My father even tried to show up at a charity event I was playing, only to be politely but firmly turned away by security Ava had insisted on hiring. They were relentless, a pack of wolves sensing a kill. During this time, Chloe started to act strangely. In her less guarded moments, when she thought I wasn't paying close attention, or when my parents weren't in earshot during our strained phone calls, I'd catch a flicker of genuine fear in her eyes. Once, she'd whispered, "Liam, you don't understand. It's not just about us," before my mother had abruptly interjected, changing the subject with forced cheerfulness. Was it possible Chloe was also a victim in this, a reluctant pawn, or was this just another layer to her act? The memory of her as a child, before the skating world had consumed her, before our parents had driven a wedge between us, made me hesitate. "Doctor." Evans was my sounding board. "Their behavior is classic manipulation, Liam. They're escalating because their initial tactics aren't yielding the desired results. Chloe's inconsistencies could indicate internal conflict, or they could be a more sophisticated form of manipulation designed to make you lower your guard." I decided to test Chloe. I agreed to meet her again, alone this time, at a quiet park, no parents, just us. Ava was, predictably, against it, but I needed to see for myself. She arrived looking even more haggard than before. The manufactured cheerfulness was gone, replaced by a raw, nervous energy. "Liam," she began, her voice barely a whisper, I shouldn't be here. They'll be furious." "They or Thorne?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Her head snapped up, Genuine shock, or excellent acting, widening her eyes. You know about Thorn? I know my father owes him a lot of money. I know they're desperate, and I know they see me as their solution. I paused, watching her closely. What I don't know, Chloe, is where you stand in all this. Are you their messenger, or are you as trapped as you look? Tears welled in her eyes, and this time, they felt real. Trapped, Liam. God, I'm so trapped. She glanced around nervously, as if expecting Thorn himself to materialize from behind a tree. It started small. Dad lost a little, then a little more. Thorn was accommodating at first. Then the interest rates climbed. The threats started, subtle at first, then not so subtle. And the investment opportunity I pressed? It's a sham, she admitted, her voice cracking. It's Thorn's way of getting his money. He knows Dad is broke. He found out about you, about your success. He told Dad to get the money from you, or else. Or else, he'd make Chloe's accident look like a picnic. Her breath hitched. My injury, Liam, it wasn't just a skating fall. Thorn's men, they encouraged me to retire after Dad missed a payment, a warning. The pieces clicked into place, forming a sickening mosaic of greed, desperation, and genuine menace. My family wasn't just dysfunctional. They were entangled with dangerous criminals. And Chloe was terrified. Why didn't you tell me this before, Chloe? I was scared, she cried, a sob escaping her. They threatened Mom and Dad. They threatened me. They said if I didn't play along, if I didn't help convince you to give them the money, they'd make sure none of us ever felt safe again. The music box, the note, that was Thorn's idea, a way to unsettle you, to make you more pliable. Mom just went along with it, played her part. So the family legacy, the special song I asked, the bitterness sharp on my tongue. Chloe shook her head, tears streaming down her face, leaving tracks in her cheap makeup. It's just an old lullaby. But the extra notes, the ones on the paper, Thorn's goons gave them to Mom. They said it was a reminder of something Dad owes them, something besides money. I don't know what it means, Liam, I swear. But it terrifies them. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, Liam, you have to help us, not just with money. Thorn, he's not going to stop. He thinks you're an easy mark. He told Dad that if you don't pay, he has other ways of collecting. The air grew cold. This had escalated far beyond a family squabble over an inheritance I didn't even know existed or a desperate plea for cash. This was about survival. And it seemed my family, in their infinite selfishness and stupidity, had dragged me right into the crosshairs. Ava, when I told her later, was silent for a long moment. Then she said, okay, this changes things. This isn't just about protecting your money anymore, Liam. This is about protecting your life. And maybe, just maybe, getting Chloe out of this mess if she's actually telling the truth. The if hung heavy in the air. Could I trust Chloe? After a decade of silence and a lifetime of being second best, was her fear genuine, or was this the most elaborate con of all, designed by Thorn himself, with my sister as the star manipulator? That night, as I sat alone in my studio, the city lights twinkling mockingly below, I opened the tarnished silver music box again. The familiar tinny lullaby played, followed by those strange, discordant notes. They no longer sounded merely out of place. They sounded like a threat, a coded message from a world of violence and fear I had unknowingly become a part of. The warning, be careful, wasn't just a suggestion, it was a dire necessity. And the game, I realized, had just leveled up. Chloe's terror-stricken confession, whether entirely genuine or a masterfully crafted performance, had undeniably shifted the ground beneath my feet. The immediate, pressing threat wasn't just my parents' manipulative avarice anymore. It was the shadowy figure of Marcus Thorn, and whatever insidious leverage he held over their pathetic lives, leverage that was now clearly, terrifyingly extending to me. Ava, ever the pragmatist, immediately switched from outrage to action. All right, Liam, she declared, her voice a low, determined hum, as she paced the length of my studio, the city lights reflecting in her intense eyes. If even half of what Chloe just spilled is true, we need a solid plan, and we need it yesterday. Thorn isn't the type to just shrug and walk away if you stonewall him. Guys like that don't understand no. They only understand pressure and pain. Our first, most critical step was to attempt some verification of Chloe's story, particularly the parts concerning Thorn and the cryptic, discordant notes hidden within that damned music box. Ava, through her labyrinthine network of contacts accumulated over years of navigating the less savory side of the entertainment industry, knew a guy. Ben Shapiro, a former high-powered music industry lawyer who'd since transitioned into a more discreet and significantly more expensive line of work, specializing in unconventional corporate investigations and problem solving. He owed Ava a substantial favor from a few years back, a detail Ava mentioned with a grim sort of satisfaction. We met Shapiro in a hushed, old-world downtown office, all dark wood paneling and leather-bound books, a place that reeked of generations of accumulated wealth and even older, more discreetly handled secrets. I felt out of place in my jeans and t-shirt, but Shapiro, a sharp, bird-like man with eyes that missed nothing, didn't seem to care. I played the tarnished silver music box, its tinny lullaby sounding even more pathetic in the opulent silence of the room. I then showed him the slip of paper with the unsettling sequence of notes and the P.O. box address. Ava had already linked to one of Thorn's shell corporations, Shapiro listened intently, his expression carefully neutral, giving nothing away. The primary melody itself is a fairly common 19th century lullaby, he stated after a long moment, his voice dry as old parchment. But these additional notes, this particular sequence, it's not standard musical notation. It's almost certainly a cipher, likely a simple substitution code, given the circles your father apparently moved in. And this P.O. box, already linked to Thorne, that's your most immediate investigative avenue. He agreed, for a hefty fee, that Ava negotiated down with surprising ruthlessness to delve into Thorne's current operations and any traceable connections to my father's activities around the time my family had so unceremoniously vanished from my life. Meanwhile, Chloe was a tightly wound bundle of nerves. Ava had booked her into a small, nondescript, extended-stay hotel on the outskirts of the city under an assumed name, a temporary safe house, while we figured out our next move. Chloe was convinced, perhaps rightly so, that Thorne or her parents would tear the city apart looking for her if they knew she'd truly broken ranks and confided in me. The few phone calls I had with her were brief, whispered affairs saturated with her palpable anxiety. She reiterated her insistence that our parents were as much Thorne's victims as she was, terrified puppets dancing on his violent strings. Dad mentioned something once a long time ago, Chloe whispered during one such furtive call, her voice so low I could barely make out the words over the static, about a ledger. Some kind of accounting book. Something Thorne desperately wanted. Something Dad claimed he didn't have anymore or couldn't find. It was from way back, Liam. Before they left you. A ledger. The something besides money that Thorne was apparently after. This felt like the real, rotten core of the whole damn mess. Shapiro called a week later, his voice devoid of any emotion, which, from him, usually meant bad news. Your father, David Carter, wasn't just dabbling in small-time gambling back in the day, Liam, he stated, getting straight to the point. According to my sources, in some rather illuminating archived police reports, he was a bookkeeper, a numbers man, for a fairly significant organized crime syndicate that Marcus Thorne was aggressively trying to absorb or dismantle about 10, 11 years ago. When the internal power struggle got particularly hot, your father apparently absconded with something extremely valuable. Financial records, a detailed ledger outlining the syndicate's operations, names, dates, offshore accounts. Thorne has been obsessively hunting for that ledger, or for any leverage to get his hands on it, ever since. He likely believes your father either passed it to you at some point, or that you, with your newfound success and resources, might know its whereabouts or be able to retrieve it. The abandonment, it all snapped into a new, horrifying focus. It wasn't just about the financial burden of Chloe skating, or their callous indifference to my existence. It was about them running for their goddamn lives, about my father trying to outrun his criminal past, and leaving me behind as a piece of inconvenient baggage, or, worse, as a potential loose end they didn't want to be burdened with. The mistake they couldn't afford wasn't a bad investment I might have overheard them arguing about. It was my father's grand theft from organized crime. The music box notes, Shapiro continued, his voice still flat. I had my people run them through a series of common, older ciphers often utilized in those particular circles. It's a locker number. Specifically, locker 387 at a self-storage facility out in Van Nuys. The P.O. box you found was likely a dead drop for communications related to it, or perhaps for blackmail payments. My blood turned to ice. My mother hadn't just left me a tarnished music box as a cruel reminder. She'd left me a goddamn treasure map to my father's sins. A map possibly planted under duress from Thorne, or perhaps left as a desperate, coded, last-ditch signal for help she couldn't voice. Ava and I, flanked by two of Shapiro's impressively built, impeccably discreet security operatives, drove out to the Van Nuys storage facility the next afternoon. The air was hot, dusty, smelling of old tires and forgotten lives. Locker 387 was registered under a laughably false generic name, John Smith, and had been paid up for years in advance, cash on the barrel. Inside, it was mostly filled with the detritus of a hastily abandoned life, boxes of old, unfashionable clothes, a couple of broken kitchen appliances, stacks of yellowing newspapers. But tucked deep inside the torn lining of a battered faux leather suitcase, we found it, a slim, unassuming, leather-bound ledger. Its pages were filled with my father's distinctive, neat, almost prissy handwriting, detailing transactions, names that sounded like they belonged in a gangster movie, dates, and offshore account numbers, a comprehensive, damning record of the syndicate's illegal activities. This was it. This was Thorne's leverage. This was what he was truly after. Now I held a stick of dynamite in my hands. The fuse already lit. I had a choice. I could try to use this ledger to negotiate with Thorne, attempt to buy my family's safety, and by extension my own, the criminals, and in doing so allow these criminals to continue their reign of terror. Or I could take the whole damn thing to the authorities, blow the lid off this entire criminal enterprise, and face the inevitable, messy, and very public storm that would undoubtedly engulf my parents, quite possibly Chloe as well. Chloe, when I confronted her later that day at her hotel, her face pale and drawn as I laid the ledger on the cheap particle board table between us, broke down completely. Yes, she sobbed, not even trying to deny it anymore, her carefully constructed defenses crumbling into dust. That's it. That's the damn thing. Dad always called it his insurance policy, but then it turned into his curse. Thorne somehow found out he still had it, or at least strongly suspected he did. He's been hounding us, tormenting us for years. And you knew about this ledger, specifically, when you first contacted me? I asked, my voice hard, devoid of the pity I might have felt moments before. Not all the details, she insisted, her eyes wide with a new wave of fear. I knew Dad was in serious trouble. I knew Thorne was dangerous, a monster. I didn't know about the ledger by name until Thorne started screaming about it to Dad again, right after he saw your name, your picture, all over the music news. Thorne thought, he figured you might be an easier target, less desperate, or that Dad might have finally broken down and told you where it was hidden. The final, ugly piece of the puzzle slid into place. My parents. I arranged to meet them at a neutral, public coffee shop, with Ava and Shapiro's security team discreetly positioned at nearby tables, just in case. I didn't mention the ledger at first. I let them go through their tired, pathetic routine of crocodile tears and thinly veiled pleas for money for that mythical Arizona investment. This investment, Dad, I said finally, my voice dangerously calm, cutting through my mother's latest wail about their impending destitution. Is it, by any chance, going to make a certain Marcus Thorne disappear from your lives? The color drained from my father's already ashen face. My mother let out a small, strangled gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. How, in God's name, do you know that name, Liam? David stammered, his eyes darting around the coffee shop as if expecting Thorne's thugs to burst through the door. I know about the ledger, Dad, I said, my gaze unwavering as I slid the slim, leather-bound volume across the table towards him. The one you stole from your former associates. The one Marcus Thorne wants back so badly he's willing to destroy lives for it. The real reason you abandoned me all those years ago. It wasn't just about Chloe's skating career, was it? It was about you running from your crimes and leaving me behind like so much excess baggage. My mother started to cry then, but these were real tears, tears of pure, unadulterated fear. My father just stared at the ledger on the table, his face a mask of utter defeat, all the bluster, all the manipulative charm, gone. Thorne. He's not a man you cross, Liam, he whispered, his voice hoarse, his bravado completely shattered. He'll destroy us all. He'll destroy you. He already tried to destroy me, Dad, I said, the accumulated weight of 10 years of abandonment, of loneliness, of struggle, making my voice heavy. You all did, by leaving me to figure it out. The decision, when it came, wasn't easy, despite everything. A small, stupid part of me, the part that still remembered a father who had, on a few rare occasions, actually thrown a baseball with me in the backyard. A mother who had, once or twice, hummed a soft, almost tender lullaby, felt a pang of something. Regret, maybe. But the larger part, the part that had survived their cruelty, the part that had clawed its way out of the darkness they left me in, knew with absolute certainty what had to be done. With Ben Shapiro's expert guidance, we contacted a specialized unit within the FBI, the ones who dealt with organized crime at the highest levels. The ledger, as Shapiro had predicted, was a veritable goldmine of incriminating information. It implicated not only Marcus Thorne, but also several other high-level figures within the now fractured syndicate. The takedown was swift, coordinated, and brutal. Thorne and his key associates were arrested in a series of pre-dawn raids. The news sent shockwaves through certain clandestine circles and made for some very sensational, if heavily redacted, headlines. My parents, for their eventual legally coerced cooperation and to avoid even more serious charges, received significantly reduced sentences for their past involvement in the syndicate's activities and for obstruction of justice. Their lives, as they knew them, the lives built on lies and desperation, were definitively over. Chloe, having come forward earlier and cooperated fully with the investigation, her own past trauma at the hands of Thorne, and the manipulative control of her parents taken into serious consideration by the authorities, was treated more as a material witness than a co-conspirator. She would need years of therapy, a mountain of support, and a vast amount of time to even begin to rebuild her shattered life. The immediate aftermath was a chaotic mess. The media, smelling blood in the water, had a field day with the chart-topping musician's secret mob-connected family story. It was lurid, sensational, and mostly inaccurate, but it sold papers and generated clicks. Through it all, Ava was a rock, a steadfast shield against the intrusive reporters and the online trolls. Doctor. Evans helped me navigate the complex, churning tidal wave of emotions, the